The journey of a man's life is often viewed as a steady climb toward a peak, followed by an inevitable descent into the valleys of time. But what if that descent is not an absolute law of nature, but a result of a biological puzzle we simply haven't solved yet? For the man who has spent decades building a legacy, protecting his family, and leading with a firm hand, the most frustrating adversary isn't an external threat. It's the quiet erosion of his own vitality. We live in a world that tells men over 60 that they should be content to fade into the background, that their best days are a collection of memories rather than a lived reality. I am here to tell you that this is a lie. True kings do not abdicate their thrones because of a calendar. They only falter when they lose the internal resources that fuel their reign. Real vitality is not about chasing the ghost of your youth. It is about mastering the body you inhabit today so that you can lead with clarity, strength, and presence in every moment. I remember clearly the first time I noticed the shift, though at the time I didn't have a name for it. It didn't arrive with a grand announcement or a sudden collapse. Instead, it was a silent, creeping sequence of small losses that began to fray the edges of my daily life. Like so many men I've spoken with since, I considered myself functional. I was still active, still respected in my community, and still capable of managing my responsibilities. Yet, something essential was beginning to fail me under the cover of darkness. The transition from being a man who commanded his day to a man who was dictated by his night happened so gradually that I almost missed the connection. It started with a single interruption, a midnight trip to the bathroom that seemed like a minor inconvenience. But soon, once became twice. Twice became 4 times. Before I knew it, my nights were no longer a sanctuary of rest. They were a series of fragmented intervals, a battlefield where the prize was a sleep I could never quite capture. What I didn't realize then was that these interruptions were the first signal in a devastating biological chain reaction. We often think of waking up at night as just a bathroom issue, but the truth is far more profound. Every time I was pulled out of sleep, my body was being denied the one thing it needed most to maintain its masculinity: deep, restorative rest. It is during these profound depths of sleep that the male body enters its most critical phase of repair. This is the factory where our hormones are regulated, where our cognitive clarity is sharpened, and where the physical energy we need for the following day is forged. When that cycle is broken, not once, but repeatedly, the body enters a state of perpetual wear and tear. I found myself waking up not refreshed, but burdened by a heavy cloud of exhaustion. That fatigue began to bleed into my personality. I was more irritable with those I loved, my focus at work began to soften, and that unshakable self-confidence I had spent 60 years cultivating felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I felt like I was stuck in emergency mode, my body forever on high alert, never allowed to fully power down. As I began to investigate why this was happening, I had to confront the center of the problem: the prostate. For most of my life, I viewed this organ as something strictly related to reproduction, a part of my anatomy that I didn't need to think about unless something went wrong. But I discovered that the prostate is actually a central regulator of the male urinary and nocturnal system. With the passage of time, factors like chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and the gradual depletion of specific nutrients begin to alter its function. It's not just about size, it's about the signals being sent to the brain. My prostate was essentially sending false alarms, convincing my brain that I needed to wake up even when it wasn't necessary. This meant my nervous system was trapped. I was living in a loop where the very organ designed to support my biology was now the one sabotaging my rest. This wasn't a sign that I was old, it was a sign that my internal gateway was blocked by a biological imbalance that no amount of willpower could overcome. The most dangerous thing I encountered during this journey was the cultural myth that this is just what happens when you get older. I heard it from peers and even some professionals. The idea that I should just accept a life of broken sleep and declining vigor as an unavoidable tax on my age. I tried the standard advice. I stopped drinking liquids after 6 p.m., I cut back on caffeine, I tried to tough it out. But none of these solved the cause. They only managed the symptoms while the underlying wear on my body continued. I refused to believe that the male biology, which is so resilient and responsive, suddenly becomes a lost cause after 60. I realized that my body wasn't failing because of the years. It was failing because it lacked the specific support required to handle those years. When the prostate is inflamed and the surrounding muscles are tight, the body cannot rest. But when you provide the correct nutritional foundation, the response is almost immediate. The simple secret I eventually uncovered wasn't a miracle cure or a complex medical procedure. It was something far more elegant, the restoration of biological equilibrium. To feel like a king again, I didn't need to fight my body. I needed to listen to it. The secret lies in 3 specific actions: reducing the internal inflammation of the prostate, relaxing the smooth muscle tissues involved in urinary flow, and allowing the nervous system to finally transition into a state of deep, uninterrupted rest. When these 3 things happen in harmony, the result is transformative. The false alarms stop. The body stays in the deep sleep stages where hormones are balanced and energy is restored. I began to see that my vitality wasn't gone. It was just buried under layers of biological stress. By addressing the health of the prostate, I was effectively unlocking the door to my own recovery. This realization is what led me to understand the value of a targeted approach. We live in an era where we can identify exactly which botanical compounds and nutrients the male body craves at this stage of life. I found that a specific combination of these elements could act as a biological bridge, moving a man from a state of exhaustion back to a state of command. This is exactly why Prostate Defend exists. It isn't a hero that fixes everything overnight. It is a meticulously crafted tool designed to support the natural processes I've been describing. By combining specific plant-based compounds and essential nutrients known for their affinity for prostate health, it helps normalize urinary function and, by extension, protects the sanctity of your sleep. It's about giving the body what it needs to stop fighting itself. When I started focusing on this kind of support, the change wasn't just physical, it was psychological. I stopped feeling like an old man and started feeling like myself again, focused, energetic, and in control. It's important to understand that using a tool like Prostate Defend is an act of strategy, not a sign of weakness. It's about acknowledging that the modern world and the natural aging process strip our bodies of the very nutrients required to maintain our edge. By reintroducing these specific elements, you are choosing to stabilize your hormonal production and secure your nights. The difference between a man who accepts his decline and a man who decides to restore his flow is simply the information he acts upon. I found that when the nighttime interruptions ceased, my daytime presence returned with a vengeance. I was no longer navigating my life through a haze of fatigue. I was back at the helm, making decisions with a sharp mind and enjoying my family with a level of patience and joy I thought I had lost. As I look back on this journey, I realized that feeling like a king again isn't about nostalgia or trying to be 20 again. It is about the profound dignity of being a man in his 60s or 70s who is fully present in his own life. It means sleeping through the night so that you can wake up with clarity. It means feeling a sense of mastery over your own body rather than being a victim of its signals. It means that when you walk into a room, you do so with the calm authority of a man who is well rested and physically sound. The simple secret is that your vitality is protected by your sleep, and your sleep is protected by your prostate health. By choosing to support that core aspect of your biology with the right nutrients and the right mindset, you are making a choice for a higher quality of life. Vitality after 60 is not a matter of luck. It is a consequence of understanding your biology and taking the correct action. We have been taught to fear the passing of time, but time is only an enemy if we refuse to adapt. When you restore your flow and reclaim your nights, you aren't just improving your health. You are reclaiming your identity. You are deciding that your best years are still ahead of you, characterized by a depth of wisdom and a level of energy that few men ever achieve. This is the path of the man who refuses to fade. It is the path of the man who understands that his reign is far from over. I invite you to join me on this journey of understanding and restoration. If this story resonated with you, and if you're ready to stop accepting exhaustion as your new normal, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. My goal here is to continue sharing these narratives of male health and to provide the insights you need to stay in command of your life. We will continue to explore the connection between our biology and our presence in the world, ensuring that every man who watches has the tools to live with strength and purpose. Your vitality is your most precious asset. Let's protect it together. I'll see you in the next video.